Welcome to Beyond Just Money by Kalkinemedia, an independent global media house and investor relations group. Please note that this podcast is for information purposes only. It's not a solicitation or recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stocks of any company or companies or engage in any investment activity under discussion. Kalkinemedia is neither licensed nor qualified to provide investment advice through this platform.
Welcome to Beyond Just Money with me, Samta. And with me today, I have the head of content of Kalkinemedia, Nidhi Sinha. And today we will be talking about why Australia needs to react to climate change at the earliest. Welcome, Nidhi.
Thanks, Samta. Climate change is indeed a global issue, and every country, including Australia, needs to address this growing threat.
Well, certainly, Nidhi. In fact, as we know that Australia is the world's largest coal thermal as well as metallurgical exporter. In fact, it is also the third largest exporter of fossil fuels. The horrific bushfires of 2019, the drought, floods, and the coronavirus pandemic indicates that the country really needs to respond to the climate change for a safer, greener, sustainable future. Why do you think that the climate change crisis has been ignored in Australia for this long?
You are right in saying this, Samta, that the climate change crisis has been long ignored in Australia. Despite various warnings from researchers to take immediate action against climate change, people and politicians in general have not taken the threat of climate crisis very seriously. This attitude has been inherently flawed and dangerous to our ecosystem and life on Earth in general. As you know, Australia is the world's largest coal thermal as well as metallurgical exporter, as per a report by Climate Analytics. It is also the third largest exporter of fossil fuels, which means that it releases a significant amount of carbon dioxide. The country also has a major share in the world's total coal production and is counted among one of the world's prominent gas exporters too. Sadly, Australia's global carbon footprint is very prominent. The exported fossil fuel emissions represented 3.6% of global emissions in 2019. Given Australia's contribution to the world's fossil fuel emissions, it is imperative to take immediate action.
You know, Nidhi, if we actually look back, Australia saw various unpleasant climatic events in the past few years. Now, looking at all of these trends, do you think that Australians are under a climatic pandemic?
Well, the horrific bushfires of 2019 continued for almost 240 days. Apart from the deaths of native people, they killed about 1 billion native animals and destroyed 10 million hectares of vegetation. The catastrophe was perhaps the most deeply traumatic experiences of Australia and continues to have adverse impacts on the nation's climate. Since 2019, along with the bushfires, Australia has also experienced droughts and floods. Several regional communities on Australia's east coast are now dealing with their third or fourth significant natural disaster since 2019. As recently as late March 2021, about 10 million Australians remained under a weather warning due to a group of colliding weather systems. This weather collision system caused flooding chaos across swathes of New South Wales. At last, several places had to be declared disaster zones and thousands of people had to be evacuated from their houses. Many communities who had just experienced the gruesome effects of bushfires about 18 months ago again got battered by the floods in March 2021. Due to extreme climatic conditions, many countryside towns have been devastated and dozens of people residing in these towns have been killed.
Right, but do you believe that it is important to prioritize climate change policies to ensure effective execution?
Australia has been a forerunner in making attempts to bring the subject of climate change on the public forum internationally. However, the country has often been tagged as one of those with the most carbon emissions. National level investments to combat climate change are also gradually falling. The message is clear. Australia needs to immediately adapt to successful and efficient climate change policies. For this to happen, really, the country needs to build a resourceful research capacity. In this critical decade, legal and social policies are needed so that the Australian economy moves rapidly towards decarbonization. And it really is needed because the adversities caused by climate change are now worse than ever. Both the national government and local authorities need to keep a close eye on new issues emerging due to rapidly changing climate conditions. It is crucial to understand when the policies need to shift to new goals depending upon the new crisis. Not only will this guarantee successful relief to the people, animals, vegetation, but also it will positively impact the environment. The policies and investment for climate change should make sure that robust actions are taken on the ground level to combat the degrading environment. Policies need to be practical, region-based, and wholesome.
Well, Nidhi, I would like to thank you today for sharing with our listeners that why Australia needs to respond to climate change for a safer, greener, and sustainable future.
Well, Samta, I really hope we do move towards a greener future soon.
Certainly, Nidhi. And to our listeners who want to listen to this podcast again, please log on to our website, that is kalkinemedia.com, or you could also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and do hit that bell icon to get the notifications on the latest videos and podcasts that are updated. Until we see you next with yet another insightful episode of Beyond Just Money, this is me, Samta, saying goodbye. And till we see you next, stay apprised and invest wise with Kalkine.
Our listeners are requested to make their own inquiries about any investments, and Kalkine Media strongly suggest that the listeners seek advice from a financial advisor, stockbroker, or other professional as necessary. Kalkine Media hereby disclaims any and all the liabilities to any listener arising from any use of the information shared or discussed in this podcast. This podcast is available for personal and non-commercial use only.